we're going to do it. You're going to go into the first part of the ask model, which is questions you're going to ask yourself, okay? The first question is, who are you? And prior to doing this, let's define bias, right? Bias is a prejudice in favor of or against one thing or person or group compared with another, usually in a way considered to be unfair. How many of y'all are parents with children that play sports? Okay, so I'm not sure if there are healthy biases. Dr. Jordan, Austin, are there healthy biases? For the sake of this, we might just say, we're going to let you slide with this healthy bias. I can already hear you all in the stadium cheering for your kids and against the others. Bias.
I'm getting put out.
Me too. I'm a trash talk. My daughter's 2. I can't wait. I'm trash talking all the 3-year-olds and soccer, cheerlead, and dance because we are winning, okay? I mean, get on the winning team, okay? So there are some healthy biases. What about, so that's parents. What about any teachers? Teachers in the room? Teachers, okay, anyone that believes they have a favorite class. You favor a class, boy, you like 3rd period before, but better than the 5th period because 5th period, they don't listen, right? Little bias, okay? And so it's okay for me, I think it's okay in this space to have those types of biases. They encourage our learners, they encourage our children. What we want to debunk today are the unhealthy biases that cause us to avoid whole groups of people because of our experiences, because of our thoughts, because of traditions, culturally maybe, because of a story grandma told you way back in the day, right? That traumatized her, but it was passed down throughout the family, and now we just don't deal with certain types of people because of a bias, okay? So the first question that we have to ask ourselves is, who are you? You need to know who you are so that you can strengthen your capacity when you deliver culturally responsive supports. You have to know who you are. We're going to be teaching people to embrace their culture. And culture is not always ethnicity, right? I'm a twin. Me and my twin sister we experienced some of the same things. We do not define them the same ways, right? We have 2 separate experiences, which now make our experience or our cultural experience different, okay? And so we have to know who we are. She had kids before me, so she would say that she's a mom and she's strong because she went through that struggle prior to me, right? Motherhood, it strengthens you in a way that I just wasn't prepared for. And so she would say she's strong, right? She would say that these other things. Who are you? Can someone raise their hand and say who they are? Who are you? Past your skin color, past the school that you went to, past the group that you're associated with. Who are you? Anybody?
Resilient.
Yes, resilient is a superpower. Resilience is a superpower.
Yes, ma'am.
Talented.
Okay.
Dr. Jordan.
Change agent.
Yes, change agent.
Some social worker words.
Anybody else?
Yes, ma'am.
Advocate. Yes. Okay. I want you all to be comfortable asking people who they are. And sometimes when you get in these spaces, I think my first freshman psychology class here at Bowie, the teacher asked who people were. And because I had a little glimpse into identity and had been through a bunch of things, I was comfortable answering. My peers were in tears before the class was over because a lot of people walk around not knowing who they are, right? As people started to say, I'm a student, I'm a this, she was like, nope. Those are roles you play. But who are you? What are you made of, right? If we were to bake a cake and it's a lemon cake, then we're not gonna say it's apple in the lemon cake, right? You have to know what's in it. Like what experiences, what are some of the things that the experiences have given you, right? That's the stuff that you're made of. That's what makes you and it creates your identity, okay? So who are you? The next question is what? What biases do you have? Can anyone be honest to share in this safe, forgiving space a bias that they have?
Yes.
First thing I thought of was AA and NA.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like if I'm talking to a person that's in NA, I get judged because I'm in AA. And they think that we don't, they think we as a whole is AA. I don't know. It just gets weird. And it's, I don't feel like that.
Yeah. Yes. That's what I love about the peer space, specifically Jordan Peer Recovery's peer space, because one of the proponents says that there are multiple pathways. So, right? So if you got to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, as long as we're moving forward, that's the name of it. So yes, I love that. I want to ask about when. When have we benefited from those, from maintaining those biases? When did we develop those biases, right? What's your earliest recollection of that bias being learned or expressed? My grandmother was Sioux Indian, and her mother was Sioux Indian, and her father was mixed. And she grew up with a different experience in the 1920s. She was born in 1922, so she had a completely different experience about race and culture in America. Very different than me. I'm an 80s baby. Absolutely glad that I was born in the 80s and not pre that. And so for her, she talked a lot about, she had these experiences that she would share, and they colored her interactions with people. I've gone down south and I've seen people to this present date still step out of spaces when certain cultural groups walk in. They still nod and things like that. And while they may be culturally appropriate to those states, when did we develop those types of behaviors? When did we learn them? Okay. A lot of those stories were passed down to us. A lot of them were given to us. And now we have the opportunity to kind of get rid of them. Okay. So that's the when. The next question is where. Where did you learn the biases? Okay. Mostly all of us were reared by someone, right? And so we grow up learning. We grow up repeating. My daughter is 2. She is an absolute, I am her mirror. As fluent as I speak, she speaks. And I get nervous every day about what she's going to say, but she is learning from me. And a lot of us learn from our parents, those that we looked up to. Those that had the opportunity at an early age to share their experiences, right? The biggest thing is that if it wasn't your experience, why hold on to it? Especially if it keeps you from connecting to a whole group of people based on someone else's experience. Now, if it's your experience, we have an opportunity to heal from that. We just got a whole pain remedy, right? No Advil, no Tylenol, purpose equation, right? We can walk ourselves through how to debunk those things and come out with something that'll monetize and help other people. I promise you're not the only one that's experienced it. So now we have to go into our why. Why should we deconstruct the biases? Because everyone in this room is a helper, right? And you want to help as many people as possible. But if your bias is like that wall that separates you from being able to help people, how purposeful is that? How does your employer benefit from that? How does your company grow from that? How do you increase your revenue? How do you continue to stay ahead of the trends and service more people and grow? One thing that I learned a long time ago about life, if you don't evolve, you die, right? Any dinosaurs in the room? We don't see them because they couldn't evolve, right? And so you want to continue to make sure that you evolve. So that's why we deconstruct our biases, because they keep us from connecting with a whole group of people. Which sounds silly when you define it. At least it does for me. And let's get to how. How can we benefit from those? How have we benefited from those biases? And can we move beyond them? Absolutely, right? It's an experience. And if you have one experience, you can replace it with another experience, right? There is a law that says a body will stay at rest until a greater force moves it, right? We have to be intentional about having the right type of experiences to debunk the negative experiences. And we'll talk about that when we get into some of the ask activities.
So part of the ask activities is 3 components: build awareness, build skills, build knowledge that ultimately leads to cultural responsiveness that facilitate changes and interventions. So in order to implement ask activities, we have to learn from others, learning from cohorts, learning from the person next to you, but having an open mind and being receptive to their culture, your own culture, but just having a learning spirit. Increase awareness by developing an understanding and value in the various experiences of people from different cultures and backgrounds. One simple thing you could do is go to engage in the open, honest, and respectful dialogue with your peers who are different with you in the same way, in some way. Also, understanding history, how it impacted yourself, how it impacted others, different cultures, and how this transcends to their behaviors, their perceptions, their belief, and also how they behave within you. Another aspect of awareness is having accurate historical context. Have you ever experienced something where someone wants to tell you about your history, but it's highly inaccurate, right? It's offensive. And it also leaves no room for the therapeutic process to grow or be formative, right? You also want to visit cultural institutions. Visiting cultural institutions and communities is a great resource to having a greater awareness and a rich culture of others. Also, we just want to simply asking the person how they want to be greeted, how they want to be acknowledged, asking them how they want to be seen in a space that you are sharing with them. So we want to also be mindful that ask is a skill. So just like any skill, the process of development of cultural responsive is a continuous process. And it's nearly impossible to point to the precise time when or anyone can say, that's it, or aha moment. So again, we want everyone to be mindful that cultural responsiveness is every continuous. Anyone, again, we're in care, we're clinicians, we're therapists, we have to have those continuing education, and that's simultaneously with the ASK model. When you reach a destination, there are many ways by which we can increase our capacity to be effective in our interactions with others. Here are some suggestions to move forward as far as development. You want to active listening. One of the biggest things of being a therapist is sitting in a space with someone, but not be quick to react or give my opinion or give next steps. So that entails for me to learn the hard truth about active listening. It's thinking about the feeling behind the content or the emotion involved. The emotion gives evidence of the real intent of the conversation, which will help you identify the person's being upset, barriers, conflicts, or any prejudice. Again, you want to be able to open yourself up to visiting cultural institutions, reading literature, being able to be engaged in immersing yourself in other people's culture. So one of the biggest things too is as therapists, but also to talk about these services, social worker in DC is practicing with empathy. Empathy is understanding that you and I are here present, but again, I'm not here to judge, but I'm here to provide empathy to you. And doing that way, again, it opens a safe space for a therapeutic process, behavioral health care, and a peer-to-peer intervention setting. It's an art of seeing and feeling the situation of another, walking in another person's shoes, or seeing the world as that person sees it. Empathy involves understanding the person's perception and the conclusion that the person draws about his or her life experiences. Also, we want to have effective engagement, or what I like to say, impactful engagement. Engagement should be a mutually beneficial or reciprocal learning process and experience in which you learn from one another. It focuses on the behaviors and situations, but ultimately you come out with a greater understanding when interacting with one another.
So we're going to list a few ASK activities. These are always great. What I love about the ASK model is that it commits us to being continual students, right? In order to be effective, you have to continue to ask questions and grow. Post-COVID, everything changed, right? All of our norms, routines, there are a lot of systems that we depended upon that had to reset and redefine themselves. So this model, which was pre-COVID, was ahead of the game as it pertains to people, right? When we think culture, we think of people groups, right? And so you want to make sure that you're engaging in activities so that you can continuously learn. Here are a few. This is not a capped off list. If there are other activities you want to add to this, you can. One of my favorite museums in the District of Columbia is, and I'm on number 3, just skipping because we all can see the screen and hopefully we all can read what they say. It is the Holocaust Museum. I go there and I just sit for hours learning. And while because as a kid we had to do, the Diary of Anne Frank and things like that, right? But I still go. That is one of the places that I go consistently. I've been to the African American History Museum. I've been to the Native American History Museum. I like studying people, and I want to know more and more about cultures, right? But that's not it. I would never call myself an expert by just going to the museum. We got to ask questions, and we have to work with people, okay? So this is all about cultural immersion. Volunteer with refugees, pen pals. This is something great. If you work with children, this is a great activity for them to do. When I was in school, we used to write letters to people in other countries so that we could learn. We also study the other languages, right? Read alternative press sources, okay? What's one of the networks? What is it that comes on and it's supposed to be credible when something happens? What is it called?
Oh, you're talking about,
I know a lot of times we look at CNN, we do the national news, but a lot of the other like gossip sources, not press news, right? TMZ, thank you. Not press news, right? You want to study national, you want to download an app or two about national resources, right? So that you can see what's happening in other cultures, right? I have a friend that is very, very close to Morocco. She has businesses there. And I just decided that I would just like look up their weather. And so I noticed that they had a earthquake and I was like, wow, or a flood. And I was like, wow, let me see what they're doing, right? Because I wanted to know more and I wanted to be involved. You can also start a book club. You can learn about religious practices around weddings, religions, customs, especially if you have clients that are outside of your own cultural group, okay? So we want to learn about histories. Number 15 is the biggest. We want to challenge stereotypes. For me, with clients, I love asking the question when I can get the relationship to a space where I can be safe. I will challenge the stereotypes and I'll ask, this is something that I've heard about your culture, you know, and I want to ask you if this is true. And they'll also say, well, this is what I've heard about your culture. I want to know if it's true. And so for me, that's my way of being able to break the ice and kind of challenge the stereotypes. Like, who told you that, right? You know, a lot of the stereotypes that are shared. Create a world map. Attend cultural panel discussions. Come back to CAP every year, right? Celebrate international days, right? Watch across cultural movies. Don't get scared. They have subtitles. Just go to settings, put it on the screen, right? Try to follow. I like it because the lips are always delayed. It's a challenge for me. I just want to keep up, okay? A few more activities. Learn proverbs from around the world. I think because distance separates us, there are a lot of things that we have in common, and you won't know until you start to learn those proverbs, right? Listen to cultural stories, watch documentaries, celebrate diversity, and attend speeches by cultural individuals. Some of the don'ts of the ask model and cultural responsiveness is that we don't assume, right? We don't want to make assumptions about anybody. The easiest thing you can do in a client peer or peer-to-peer relationship is ask. It is the most powerful intervention. Just ask. And if you set that as a boundary or precedence in the beginning, the relationship will go far. Ask. Now, you may have to create some boundaries around asking, but you want to ask, okay? The next one is don't try to use a formula. You cannot cookie cut. As I told you, I have a twin. And we used to do the family panel together with my brother, and we would get questions, and we would be learning each other on the spot. I could have swore we were at the same location when it happened, and she had a whole different view of what took place. You cannot approach any cultural group, even Tania and I, who represent the same culture. We're both females, we're both in the social service industry, so you would think that you could approach us in the same manner. You can't. And we're both twins.
we're both twins.
Right? You would think that, now we have some similarities, and we look at each other like we knew that, if they only knew. But you can't approach us the same way, okay? You can't cookie coat. You cannot treat people, you have to then treat people as individuals. That's why it's an individual service plan, right? You want to create that individual map. And don't forget about the elements of diversity that can be overlooked, like sexual orientation, religion, origin, generation, and how those things, they can impact communication.
So cultural responsiveness is a deliberate effort, acknowledging, understanding, and acceptance of beliefs, values, and ethics of others. By extension, is a demonstrated skills necessary to work with and serve diverse population, disenfranchised groups. It involves awareness and respect for culture, congruency, and divergence to include age, gender, sexual orientation, disabilities, religion, and income, education and profession, and geographic location. Cultural awareness in the workplace occurs when an employee or a clinician or a peer understands the differences between themselves and others, and it increases the differences of attitudes and values and how these diversities lead to more collaborative work environment. Awareness is an important key to improving peer-to-peer relationships or the therapeutic process in the workplace, as cultural awareness focuses on the value of diverse cultures. It allows you to highlight each individual's perspective, education, experiences of other colleagues, and in return, you create a healthy work environment or a healthy therapeutic setting. So how can we engineer cultural responsiveness? One of the main interventions is motivational interview. Has anyone heard about motivational interviewing? Yes, we all love that, right? One of the main things I like more about motivational interviewing is the client is speaking their truth, their narrative. It's not more so the therapist facilitating the therapeutic process, right? We're just going with the flow. But ultimately, we're motivating them to their needs. So some of the things we want to discuss is open-ending questions. You want to be able to allow the individual to tell their story. So some of the questions that you would ask is, can you tell me more about your past experiences? Can you tell me how this intervention aligns with your cultural interests or your cultural history? Can you tell me how this has worked in the past and your strengths that you have discovered because of these past interventions or these past experiences? So when we talk about affirmations are statements and gestures that affirms the individual's strengths and acknowledges their behaviors that led to change. So some of the things we say, thank you for sharing. I want to be able to commend you on the courage that you have by sharing your story. Must have been challenging for you, but you navigated that very well. You develop a lot of strengths that be able to continue to navigate the cultural repertoire. So when we talk about reflective listening with attentiveness, and by using effective repeating, paraphrasing, and emotional reflective skills, it's for the listener to convey what the speaker has said accurately and correctly. It sounds like you said, if I'm hearing correctly, this is what you said.
Fine. So we are at the near end, right? And we wanted to suggest just a few things that your organizations, you as peers, as you go into the workforce, can continue to do to ensure that the workspace and that your clients are serviced appropriately. And so you want to make sure that you're continuing to learn, right? There are CEU opportunities. Your jobs should be providing you training, right, that keeps you ahead of the trends, and so that you can respond appropriately to the growing concerns and disparities that our clients experience in the community, right? So you want to continue to grow. There are lots of counseling organizations. I saw inside of the book, if you decide to go to any of the websites for the sponsors, most of them are going to have their own conferences. They're going to have trainings and webinars. It's all about learning, because the more that you know, the more questions that you'll ask. At least that's what I believe about my 2-year-old. The more she learns every day, she comes home asking questions, right? So the more you know, the more we'll grow. The next one is inclusion of cultural expertise in the workplace. You want to diversify the workplace. If you're an employer, if you're in charge of hiring, you want to specifically look for, you want to diversify your teams. If you service other cultures, are there individuals that speak those languages represented amongst your groups, right? If not, then you limit your ability to impact people. We understand that substance use and mental health is a national thing, an international thing, and we want to grow. So our workspaces should be diverse, okay? Employment of language translators. If you do not have, individuals that work for your organizations that can speak multiple languages, are you accessing language helplines? Google Translate is cool, but after a while, it's a little lazy. Just a teeny bit, a little bit. There needs to be an investment in equitable services, right? We have to invest in that.
But I also want everyone to be confident to asking your employees that are expert in that field. I used to work with a young lady who was part of the LGBTQIA. And if there's ever a time where we were servicing a youth or we were servicing a population, I would ask her, how should I meet this individual in their level? How can I allow for this child to feel seen? What are some of the trigger words I can avoid? How can I highlight each strip? So again, being very comfortable to asking your colleagues that are experts within the field. And she will in turn ask me, well, how do you feel about corporal punishment? And, again, that went to a whole different level. But again, we were servicing African-American children at that time. So I respected that she came from a spirit of learning, and she wanted to do no harm. So again, we want to be able to ask the certain questions. Also being aware that if you come with empathy of wanting to ask about cultures and how to be responsive to that, you will see a change in therapeutic process. You will see a change of how that client, that peer, or that workplace changes because, again, they feel seen. They come as their authentic self. So, again, you want to create an environment that culture is inclusive. You want to create an environment where there are not barriers to expression of cultures. And again, that's by recognizing cultural holidays and holiday celebrations. Again, we do not want to offend, so we want to be able to ask. Again, my husband served in the military in South Korea. I think they were celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, and they decided to give everybody tacos from Taco Bell, right? So that was pretty offensive in nature to the Hispanics that served during that time. So again, we do not want to do harm. We want to be able to have effective therapeutic process. In order to do so, we have to ask.
In addition to that, so Tania and I also work together. We work in DC with the homeless population, and I used to just assign based on availability. If you had a slot open and a client was assigned to us, I would just assign that client. What we've been able to do is to utilize the skill set of our staff, and we match it to the transferring information that comes to us about that person, about the client, right? And so now we're matching people that have lived experience, shared experience, training, and knowledge with the client so that they compare better, right? You want that rapport to increase. You only have a small amount of time to do it, and so you want to be able to match them appropriately. So that's one way that we were able to do it. So as you all are peers, you want to go into your workspaces sharing not your history, but you want to go in confidently letting them know that through these trainings, you can be matched to persons that have the same types of experiences, right? And you just go peer to peer with them. There is no better way than peer to peer, okay? And then with the holidays and celebrations, we love potlucks at our job. We have a diverse group of people, and people that cannot cook, we have them bring in the cutlery and the drinks from the store, because nobody's stomach wants to be uncomfortable at work. We only have a couple of restrooms. So for us, we love our staff members from other cultures. We love people experimenting with other types of food, and we enjoy it. We sit down together, we talk about it, we tease people, we joke, and we take that time to come together. Potlucks have kind of really saved the day, and our director just re-implemented them. Thank you.
But it also stimulates conversation.
Yeah.
We all know if you ever attend someone's function, ultimately you lead to the kitchen, right?
So this is our last activity as we close. I wanted to get some feedback about the pictures. If we look at photo number 1, is anyone able to share what reality looks like, what the picture is trying to say?
Thank you for that. And also,
Sorry.
Is seeing through different heights and what you see visually.
Access, yeah.
It also shows ultimately the reality of the disenfranchised population, where certain resources or supports are disproportionately afforded to certain population, and they're pillars to a stance or status that creates barriers or attainment to success or equal opportunity for others, right? What about the two in the middle? Does anyone know the difference between equality and equity? Equity.
Equity. So, equality. What is spending? Stay on the chat in certain ways, but still not even same.
Okay. Yes.
where they get what they need.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So sure, equity involvement. Despite both they and everything's equal, there's certain advantages to all adoption or with therefore happens they show skill out of leveling like feel.
Yes, exactly. So equality means that each individual is afforded the same opportunities and the same resources, but it doesn't take into account individual differences, barriers, or limitations, right? Equity means that certain resources or opportunities are afforded to the individual based off their limitation, discrimination, or necessary skills to be able to reach a level of reality, right?
And the last photo.
Liberation and just erase the barrier.
Erase the barriers.
Exactly. The ultimate goal for all of us to be liberated of any inequality, oppression, discrimination, disproportionate opportunities, right?
Maybe no fun.
Freedom.
Yes. And the last picture represents where all of us as peers and those that love this space, this is where we have to work. We have to work daily to make sure that our spaces, our offices, our forms, our intake processes, it all looks like this. Everyone has the same access to that opportunity, okay? So in closing, here are some trainings that Tania and I are supporting. We are contractors here at Bowie State working on some important grants in the substance use and mental health spaces. We're partnering with the Department of Health and we're partnering with University of Maryland School of Medicine along with Jordan Peer Recovery. Here are some trainings that they have and they are free. There's a self-paced method, and then there are live trainings. So this is a flyer. So there is a QR code if you want to take the photo. You're more than welcome to do so. Here is the second one. It is Parent Craft. Parent Craft is a self-paced resource. It's free for parents, right? If you have parents that are, school is out. School is out for me in Virginia. School may not be out here yet, but when it's out, you want to enable parents to have tools at their fingertips to be able to support their families, right? While they're away from school, while they may be away from the supports, okay? And it all comes with homeworks and worksheets and things that they can do to hold themselves accountable so that they can grow, right? We want families to be healed and whole, okay? So Parent Craft has a QR code as well.
So Jamelia and myself would like to thank everyone for attending the training today. Thank you all. If there are any additional questions, please feel free to stop us and ask us, okay?